So the very first one-on-one debate between Bernie Sanders and Hillary Clinton on MSNBC is over, and I think that it's very clear who the winner is. And that individual is Bernie Sanders. Now, the only thing that I'm debating with myself about is whether or not he blew it out of the park more this time or last time, because his last two debate performances were particularly well. Now, for me, I think that Bernie Sanders has won every single debate thus far. Now, you have to keep in mind that I'm incredibly biased. I agree with every single thing that Bernie Sanders has to say, policy-wise, for the most part. I have some minor disagreements, but the way that I determine who wins is how they perform, their level of energy, also how they answer the questions, and if they're on the offense or on the defense and whatnot. And I think that Bernie Sanders has done a phenomenal job. Now, the reason why I think it's very clear that he again won this time was because he dominated the debate. Every single question, well, not every single question, but the majority of the questions were centered around Bernie Sanders. I mean, Hillary Clinton had to go on the offensive basically all night. Not with every single subset of questions, but for the majority of the time, she was having to answer for her refusal to back actual true universal healthcare, not, fake universal healthcare, where the private insurance industries can rip us off. Basically, her Wall Street donations, just so much. So I thought that Bernie Sanders did a phenomenal job. So I want to give you my opinions on the topic. So typically what I do is I talk about, Bernie Sanders' performance, and then I talk about Hillary Clinton. But since there's only two, it doesn't make sense to do that. So I'm just going to go issue by issue and give you my opinion on them. So when it comes to healthcare, Hillary Clinton has been extremely disingenuous. She's been extremely misleading. Basically, she's said that Bernie Sanders wants to start from scratch, rip up the Affordable Care Act. That's not the case. But Bernie Sanders was correct to note that there's so many deficiencies with the Affordable Care Act. For example, even if you get to 100% insured under the Affordable Care Act like Hillary Clinton wants, well, that doesn't account for the fact that people are underinsured, meaning that they're going to have insurance, but it's going to be bad insurance, or they're not even going to be able to use it if they need it because the deductibles are so high, $5,000, $10,000. So you're paying these monthly premiums of $300, $400, $500 per month, but yet you can't even use it if you get sick due to these high deductibles. So the Affordable Care Act is not going to stop people from going bankrupt. So Hillary Clinton is not on the right side of history, and Bernie is correct to know that every other modern industrialized nation has universal health care, and it's time that we get on board. Now, every single time this debate comes up, she talks about how she has the scars to prove that she fought for universal healthcare. Now look, credit where credit is due. Hillary Clinton absolutely fought for universal healthcare. That's something that's undeniable. She was a warrior for it in the 90s, and I loved her back then. But the problem is that she doesn't necessarily have the scars to prove that, she fought for universal healthcare more than she has the actual donations and cases of bribery to show why she flipped her position. So, for example, she was greased by the health insurance industry. She did speaking fees on behalf of the drug companies and whatnot. They donated so much money to her campaign. So it's not that, it was a hard-fought battle and she just lost and conceded. It's because she was bribed. So when it comes to healthcare, Bernie Sanders is absolutely right. So getting to Wall Street and just the plethora of issues surrounding this, Bernie Sanders he did so well. I think that this segment on Wall Street was the best out of all of the debates thus far. He was so strong, so articulate, that I don't think Hillary Clinton will recover from this at all, because there's just too much dirt on her. She's too close to Wall Street. And when she talks about all these endorsements, when she touts endorsements from governors and whatnot, that's fine. You can have all the endorsements from the establishment that you want, and that, they're going to say you're strong and you're going to reign in Wall Street. But Bernie, when he said that, he has the people, that was such a smart thing to say. Because yes, Hillary Clinton, it's no joke that you have the weight of the establishment throwing behind you, but Bernie Sanders has the people. You don't outspend a candidate. You don't raise 3.5 million individual contributions without the will of the people if you don't have a super PAC. So, brilliant point there. So I thought that was phenomenal. But here's what she did that drove me nuts. So she pushed back on his assertion that she's part of the establishment by saying that she's a woman. How can you say that, a woman is part of the establishment? That is just, she knows exactly what she's doing, and what she's hoping is that people won't be privy to this knowledge that, oh, okay, what a great point, that is the establishment. Because nobody really knows what the establishment is, other than the fact that they hate the current political establishment. But if you were asked to define it, it's kind of an amorphous entity. I've done it on, the Humanist Report before, so you can look that up if you want to. But look, it is difficult to define. But what the establishment refers to, as Bernie Sanders had rightfully pointed out, is that the establishment is basically, this big circle jerk. He didn't use that term to describe it, of course, but it's, the wheeling and dealing, the backroom deals, the campaign contributions, and then politicians putting money back into the hands of their donors. It's the investments in donors rather than the American people. It's the politicians looking out for themselves and going to work on Wall Street. The revolving door, that's part of the establishment. The Clinton machine is, by definition, part of the establishment. Another thing that really bugged me is she talked about how raising taxes would hurt people, but that's incredibly disingenuous, because if you're raising taxes but you're going to be getting rid of insurance premiums, this kind of gets back into healthcare, but I have it in my notes with Wall Street, but I just want to bring it up briefly here. If you're raising taxes but you're saving people $5,000 per year, which is what Bernie purports will be the case with his universal healthcare plan, that's a win. We're not just, by definition, unequivocally against taxes because we don't like that word, because it's a dirty word, right? I mean, there's nuance to the world. So if you say that you're going to raise my taxes, but I'm going to save money in the end because I don't have to pay these ridiculous health insurance premiums, I am not going to fight you on that. And I don't think anyone else will too, unless they're illogical and they just don't have common sense. Furthermore, when it comes to this issue of Wall Street, kind of getting back to that, sorry for the pivot. So he brought up super PACs and how he doesn't have one, and how Hillary Clinton has taken donations from special interests, and damn, that was strong, because she has nothing to say to rebut this point. You can go to opensecrets.org and see all of the donations that Hillary Clinton has taken. Now, Hillary Clinton, she said this again. She said this at the CNN Democratic Town Hall that, I've never changed my view or vote based on a donation. But we have demonstrable evidence for why you have done this. Again, I mentioned it earlier. The health insurance industry. You were in favor of universal health care, but once they started to give you hundreds of thousands in speaking fees and donate to your campaign, all of a sudden you're against it. So you can say that all you want, but we're not convinced. So as a voter, you have to convince us that you're not going to be beholden to special interests in the individuals who fund your campaign, because obviously they're funding your campaign because they're looking at this as an investment. Goldman Sachs doesn't donate 200,000, 300,000, I think it was 600,000 that she got for 2 speeches. They don't donate to you because they value your opinion and they just want to hear you talk. They are looking to suck up to you because you're going to potentially be the next president, and they want to make sure that you're gonna do their bidding for them. So it's an investment that they're looking for. It's not something, oh well, she's worth $600,000. I'm sorry, but I don't care if you were Jesus Christ. You're not worth $600,000 to speak for a couple of hours. Sorry, and you're naive if you think that we believe that, Hillary Clinton. So yeah, now here's the thing. When Bernie Sanders made the point about how, basically what Hillary Clinton was purporting is that it isn't necessarily the case that because you take donations from, Wall Street, like Obama, he still implemented Dodd-Frank reform, which is garbage. But, it's not the case that you will be beholden to special interests. And Bernie Sanders, he went full-on Hulk mode here when he said, why do you think Wall Street was deregulated? Why do you think we have high prescription drug prices? Why do you think the Republicans won't say anything about climate change? It's because of the money. And that was a knockout to me. That was an absolute knockout to me. But one thing that really rubbed me the wrong way is Hillary's response was that, well, Bernie Sanders, he voted to deregulate derivatives. If any of you watched The Big Picture with Tom Hartman, brilliant, brilliant show. It's on RT. He made the point that this is the most disingenuous attack that Hillary Clinton has launched to date on Bernie Sanders. Now, this is because her husband is the one that pushed for that bill, and Bernie Sanders had no choice but to vote for that because it was part of, I believe, a spending bill. So to bring that up is such a problem. I wish that Bernie Sanders explained why he voted that way better than he did, but nonetheless, I mean, the fact that, he's consistent about this and he's not taking donations, I think that he's going to come out on top. Okay, so more on the issue of Wall Street. So Bernie Sanders made the great point that, kids are arrested for smoking pot, yet these Wall Street executives, they get away scot-free. That was a phenomenal point, and that kind of put Hillary Clinton in the corner because she said that she's not really in favor of legalizing marijuana. It's a states' rights issue. So I thought that was great, and that's why he's getting so much support from young people. And furthermore, Hillary Clinton said that she's going to break up the big banks only if they pose a big risk. But Hillary Clinton, they do. We have 6 banks that, I can name off the top of my head that are too big to fail. The executives are too big to jail, and they need to be broken up. So the fact that you don't even think that it's to the point that they need to be broken up, that they're a risk yet, that shows that you're not serious about Wall Street reform. And she's still pushing the idea that Dodd-Frank is adequate reform when that's not the case at all. Dodd-Frank had potential at first, but it's gotten watered down to the point that it's basically not even anything. It's worth. I don't want to say it's worthless, but if you think that that's enough to rein in Wall Street, you're delusional. So moving on to foreign policy, I'm going to try to go through this topic briefly. So I think that Bernie Sanders and Hillary Clinton tied here, because I think Bernie Sanders did a great job at showing why he is reasonable, when it comes to foreign policy. And even though people say that, he just ignores foreign policy, that's not true. He has the most sane stance on foreign policy compared to anyone in the presidential race now. Rand Paul, Martin O'Malley, they're gone. The only other sane people when it comes to foreign policy. So Bernie Sanders is the one lone voice in this race now that has a sane stance when it comes to foreign policy. But there was a problem that I had. So basically, Chuck Todd asked him about the Afghanistan war and when he would be bringing troops home. He didn't really answer the question well. And then when Hillary Clinton actually answered the same question, she didn't answer it very well either, but she, I think, performed better than Bernie on this question. I mean, again, this is go-to tactic. When you're mentioning foreign policy, you name drop people. She mentioned the president and showed knowledge, and she looked better than Bernie Sanders here. So I wish that he would have taken the time to actually really give a more thorough answer. But when it comes to foreign policy in general, I think that Bernie Sanders held his own there, regardless of this little blip. Because, you're not going to... You can win these debates without getting, just 100% dominance, right? Even though I think he dominated nonetheless. But this was one spot where I kind of wished Bernie performed better. But Hillary Clinton brought up the point that military experts issued a concerning statement about Sanders' foreign policy. Now, the problem with this is that the individuals who penned this bullshit letter, well, a lot of them were military contractors, so they have a financial incentive to go to war. It's not the case that we should be listening to people who actually profit from sending our brothers and sisters and people's sons and daughters overseas to die. I think that's absolutely immoral. So no, I'm not going to listen to them. They're not experts. If you have the financial incentive to go to war, you don't get to speak on this topic. You're not legitimate, okay? Military and defense contractors don't get to have a say of what should and shouldn't be when it comes to foreign policy, because we know what you want. You want war. You want more killing. You want money. You want to perpetuate the military-industrial complex, and that's not okay. Now, when it comes to her judgment with the Iraq War, of course, that was horrible judgment. And she said, well, look, my judgment is fine because Obama appointed me as Secretary of State. But you've proven while you were Secretary of State that you don't have good judgment, because what happened in Libya, I believe, you guys helped to overthrow Gaddafi. What happened after that? It's just been chaos. So Libya is now descended into a failed state. Basically, ISIS has captured territory, and it's a complete debacle. And how do you say that, you have good judgment when you did this? I mean, look, nobody's saying that Gaddafi is a good guy, but again, when you overthrow these dictators, look what happens. Absolute chaos. These power vacuums emerge, criminal groups, terrorist organizations come to power, and you can't do that. You have to be smart. Okay, so when it comes to the death penalty, I thought that both of them answered right. I thought Hillary's response was reasonable, and it was poignant. But Bernie Sanders was really, really, really good on this issue. He stated the fact that, look, I understand why you would be philosophically in favor of the death penalty, but the fact of the matter is that many people who are innocent get executed, and African Americans well, they get executed more than other people, even though they're innocent. So we shouldn't have the government participate in killing. And furthermore, you could really make a strong constitutional argument against capital punishment, that it's in violation of the Eighth Amendment. If this isn't cruel and unusual punishment to kill someone, then I don't know what is. Now, look, I'm not saying that these psychopathic killers and terrorists don't deserve death, but what I'm saying is that you're not a progressive if you are not in favor of abolishing the death penalty, because the state just shouldn't be involved with killing people. Lock them up forever, like Bernie Sanders said, throw away the key. But this is an issue where we have to move forward as a country. So when it comes to the issue of Flint, I think that they both answered really well. But again, Bernie Sanders one-upped Hillary Clinton by actually pointing out the reality that what would happen if Flint wasn't predominantly black, if it was, a middle-class, suburban, white neighborhood. And this is such a phenomenal point. You don't ever see this happening in upper-class, middle-class, white neighborhoods. You see this happening in poor, not necessarily just, predominantly African-American, Latino neighborhoods, but in poor areas. And Bernie Sanders was right to make that connection. And I like that, this proves that he's really looking out for the little guy. And he actually knows all these little subtleties that are present in these occurrences. Now, TPP, he was so good on explaining how free trade deals are disastrous and basically our jobs just get shipped overseas. They're written by and for corporate America. It's basically a race to the bottom. You're competing with people in Vietnam who make less than $1 per hour. What do you think a corporation is going to be more willing to do? Is he going to want to pay us $7.25 an hour minimum wage, or is he going to want to ship that job overseas to Vietnam and just pay them 50 cents an hour? Well, of course they're going to do that, right? They have a fiduciary responsibility to increase shareholder value, so they're going to do what they can to facilitate that reality. But if you actually do regulation and you tell them, no, you can't do these disastrous free trade deals. I mean, the TPP is particularly harmful based on the investor dispute settlement mechanism. I think that's what it's called. And basically what it does is it allows corporations to sue us if our laws are going to be damaging to free trade. So if we implement a climate change or ban on fossil fuels, just for example, hypothetically speaking, then they can challenge us, and there's a arbitration that is set up with with people that the corporation's appointed, basically. So yeah, I'm oversimplifying it, but just to let you know, it basically threatens our own sovereignty. So that way we can't do what we want to do when it comes to trade. So when it comes to what you will prioritize, Hillary Clinton was asked, would you do immigration reform, climate change, so on and so forth? And she dodged the question. I don't think that it was wrong for her to dodge it, because that's difficult. Because if you say climate change, then you disenfranchise people who want immigration reform. If you say you want to do immigration reform first, then you disenfranchise people who want climate change reform done first. So there's no right or wrong answer. And I think that it was smart to dodge. But Bernie Sanders, when he was posed the same question, I crossed my fingers and I said, please, Bernie Sanders, say campaign finance reform. And when he said it, I literally screamed, yes! Because that is the one issue that you have to address first. Because unless you get comprehensive campaign finance reform, guess what? You're not going to get anything that you want through. Corporations are going to spend money, billionaires are going to spend money buying these elections, and then in turn, we're not going to be represented, but the special interests will be. So this was such a smart and just brilliant answer for Bernie Sanders. A couple things that I wanted to bring up. That's basically the extent of my analysis. But there are two last things. So every time I tell you guys, so when it comes to Wall Street, mark my words, Hillary Clinton is going to pivot to Republicans because she doesn't have anything to say that can really help her. So she has to deflect and say, well, look, you might not like me, but look at the Republicans. Look how disastrous they are, right? And she did not do that this time. So I'm really proud of her for doing that. However, guess who did do it? Bernie Sanders pivoted to the Republicans. Now, this isn't problematic because it's not, a substantive issue. It was on the question of, would you consider Hillary Clinton for vice president? And Bernie Sanders pivoted to Republicans. So I can no longer say that that's just a Hillary Clinton tactic. When in doubt, you pivot to Republicans when you don't want to answer a question, and you get a loud cheer from the crowd. And I think him and Hillary even high-fived each other because they're both like, yeah, we got to pivot once in a while to the Republicans. And that was great. Look, do I like the idea of either of them being each other's VP? Absolutely not. So if Hillary's a Democratic nominee, I want Bernie Sanders in there fighting against anything that she proposes that's arbitrary. So if she suddenly decides that she wants to have a change of heart on Keystone or the TPP, I want Bernie Sanders to block that. I want him to stop her from doing that. Should Bernie Sanders be, or excuse me, should Hillary Clinton be Bernie Sanders VP? No, absolutely not. She's too hawkish, and she's not a progressive, and I don't necessarily think that they would work too well together on a whole array of issues. I mean, maybe she would acquiesce and, jump on board with universal healthcare. I mean, it could definitely help him, but I'd rather have someone who is a real progressive. And for me, the ideal candidate is either Elizabeth Warren or Nina Turner. Okay, now one last thing I want to talk about. This is not about any of the candidates. It's about Chuck Todd. He quoted Bernie Sanders and said, "You didn't give a darn about her emails." And he really emphasized how, we can't say damn. Chuck, I mean, are you 11? You can't say damn? Really? That, I don't know why that bugged me so much, but Chuck Todd is like someone who I feel like he shouldn't be a journalist. Now, again, before I even proceed, disregard any and everything I said going forward, because it's not substantive. It's just an ad hominem attack on Chuck Todd. It's completely unfair, but I feel like he shouldn't be a journalist. I feel like he reminds me of someone who would be like in a children's show like The Wiggles or Barney, and be like one of the, the characters who like sings and dances, because he's so timid and he's so like, I don't know. There's something about Chuck Todd where I don't hate him. I mean, I have a lot of disagreements with people in the media. Chuck Todd, I have a lot of disagreements with him. But I don't know. That question just really irked me, and it has nothing to do with the debate. But I had to bring it up because, I got to speak my mind, really. But just say damn. It's not a bad word. And furthermore, people who complain about bad words, well, they're missing the point. If you can cuss all you want, but if you're saying something substantive, then, there's no problem with that. They're sentence enhancers. And, damn isn't, come on, we're all adults here. I don't think a 5-year-old is going to be tuning into the Democratic debate. So I don't even know why I decided to mention this, but whatever. That's my thoughts. Tell me what you guys think. Yeah, I'll see you next time.